Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is reviewing the minutes of all that's they've been sent to all of you. Any additions, subtractions, or corrections? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Aye.
George, we have a second.
I'll second it.
Nick, second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay, now we'll get to the water division, and I guess we're going to be talking with Alex.
Yes.
Okay, Alex, if you want to get started.
Okay. Let's see. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why don't you go to slideshow view?
Can you still see my screen, or?
Yep, I see
Yeah.
it. But
Is it in
slideshow would be better.
Share a different screen to do that. Let's see. How's that?
Perfect.
All right.
Good.
Does everyone see the full slide now?
Yes.
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 Great.
Okay.
Well, just to quickly introduce ourselves again, I'm Jennifer Lockmeyer, and I'm the project director for Arcadis for this assignment. And Alex is our project manager, as well as the lead instrumentation and controls engineer. So he'll be explaining what's going on, and then we'll talk about some schedules and deadlines.
Okay. So our there we go. So our agenda for tonight, I'm just going to quickly go over some of the SCADA equipment that we're planning on upgrading at the treatment plants and the remote sites. And some of this might be a review for some of you that saw the presentation before, but then I'll get in, just going to review it quickly and show the differences in equipment and some of the level of complexity involved with the project with the staging. And then we'll get into the cost estimate, construction versus total project, and then the schedule for the project. And then we'll have some a Q&A session at the end. So first we start off with our health and safety moment, and the CDC recommends getting your flu shots this fall if you haven't gotten one already, just to help conserve potentially scarce healthcare resources, and it can take up to 2 weeks for your immunity to build up after getting a flu shot. So getting a flu shot is the best way to protect yourself and your family from catching the flu. So there's two water filtration facilities, Falula and Regional, and there's two main panels at each of these sites, the master control panel and the filter control panel. So and these were built around 2000, 2003, and the hardware is not supported anymore by the manufacturer. This is the Regional site, similar hardware. You can tell this panel is very full, and a lot of this equipment is outdated, and they've been trying to upgrade this panel because some of the cards don't work anymore, and you can't buy the new cards. So they've been trying to piecemeal it to keep things going, and they've been doing that by using an additional controller that's cheaper to find parts for, but it doesn't really solve the long-term issue. And this is the Regional filter control panel. And then both sites have a SCADA system that communicates to fill in information from either site. And they both have their own independent processes. So this is Regional. This is just a list of the sites, just to show an overview of the number of different PLCs there that are in the system, and those are the controllers that run the process, and then some of the different communications methods. So a lot of them are using leased line, but some are on radio, and some just have alarm dialers and aren't monitored at SCADA at all. And the leased line is losing support from from Verizon. The next few slides just show some of the equipment and the variety of equipment and how old it is. So you can see this is an older panel at Merrimeadow. This is the La Cava station, which is the station that provides water for Great Wolf Lodge. You can see it's this is the on the right. The picture here is of this is the controller that tells the pumps how much pressure to provide for the water system for La Cava. And you can see all the circuit boards are open. There's no cover. This is within within an enclosed control panel, but you'd still like to see just some more protection for that. And also, if something were to happen to this is a very old piece of equipment, and it would have to be replaced, and might be tricky to do that. So these are the number of different controllers that need to be supported right now. So there's a large variety across the plants in the remote sites. And then with the new system, we're planning on using these two controllers. So the one on the left would be used for the plants, and then the one on the right would be used for all the remote sites and any standalone control panels. So this standardization would allow just the one type of programming, even though there's two different controllers, it's one type of programming, and then the modules that would go with these would be the same as well. So the goal is to standardize as much as possible. And this is kind of a general overview of what the new network would look like. Flula and Regional would have all these different components, and they would communicate together, and they would also communicate out to the remote sites. And we would be doing that through a cellular network, Verizon. And then on the plants themselves, they'd also have access to wireless tablets, which they could also take to a remote site and access the SCADA system. And they could just for monitoring and seeing statuses, and not for control unless they're near the piece of equipment at the site, at the main sites. So this is this part gets into some of the complexity with the project, which is keeping operations going while upgrading these control panels. So this panel is pretty full. This is the master control panel at Regional, and we need to provide a new panel. So we're going to move these signals over to a new panel, and this is the filter panel at Regional, and they're both in the same room. And the next few slides we'll go through how that would work. So this would be step one of the upgrade, where over here on the left, this is that first panel, the main control panel, and this is the filter panel on the bottom here. And then on the right is our new panel. It's shown offline right now. That's why it's red. So, and then on the right we have which panels are running the plant and which ones are offline. So what we would do is we would be able to run the plant from the main control panel using the primary pumps. And what we would do is move over all the standby pumps and that type of equipment. So all the backup equipment we could move over to the new panel. And then what we could do is run that backup equipment while we cut over the rest of the equipment from the main control panel. And then in the next step, we need to upgrade this filter panel. So what we would do is move over half of the equipment from the filter control panel temporarily to the new main control panel, and then we would run the entire plant from the new main control panel while we replace the back panel and the filter control panel. And then once the back panel is replaced and there's new components in the filter control panel, we would move those temporary signals back. And the reason we have to do this is all the field signals for all the filters and clarifiers and all that equipment comes up in the bottom of this filter control panel, so we can't just get rid of it. So it just makes more sense to reuse the panel and provide it with a new back panel. And then this would be the final configuration where we'd use the new master control panel and the upgraded filter control panel. And the old master control panel would just be a termination box for all the field wiring. So that's kind of the a quick run through of some of what we're dealing with. And Jen is gonna go through the construction cost and the engineer's cost.
Yep. So the costs, we did actually, since the last time we spoke with you guys, we have added more equipment. It was mostly related to the remote sites. Some additional equipment was added for security. But you'll see that the total construction is still estimated to be about the 2.3. The engineering and configuration, that will be done by Arcadis. And so the total project cost is still at about 3.1, 3.2, I guess, at this time. So that's about it on that. And then here is an overview of the schedule, which is, partly why we're talking about all these items, is I know that you have to work to appropriate the funds. John can probably provide more details on how you'll go about that, but we would begin the configuration and the PLC work as early as January. The contract would be also out to bid in January for the construction components of it. As we've discussed with your procurement department, we're planning to bid this as an electrical contractor, as a general contractor. We've actually done that on numerous other projects and it works quite well that way. And so we look for an NTP for the contractor to begin in March 2021. And then you can see that we have the highlighted bars of periods where we need to be mindful of the water demand for the community. So those are all noted and they're all incorporated into the sequencing. And then in the green boxes, we kind of have general time periods and constraints for the contractor in terms of what is getting moved when, which is what Alex was just showing you guys. And so that kind of brings us through to completion by May 2022. And I think with that, we're ready for open discussion. Oh, I don't know that we need that one. Yeah.
Okay.
We see your emails there, Alex. There you
Okay.
go.
Does anybody have questions?
I have a question. In the cost estimate, you had 15% contingencies, and then you have a low limit, high limit. It looks like you're adding another 10% almost.
Yes. So we're carrying the construction contingency as part of construction related items, and then the low limit, high limits are part of the AACE class estimate for just the overall estimation purposes. So just to keep the two categories separate.
Okay. So once it goes out to bid, we'll get a better idea of what the costs are. But your sense of where these construction costs for these types of SCADA systems are You said there's a lot of competition right now, especially with like the high-tech companies.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of competition, and there's possibly increased costs depending on the market conditions for different materials.
Mhm,
We saw that type of stuff.
mhm.
As far as the cost for the legal ad, I think we tightened those numbers up for the legal ad purposes. But I think
Mhm.
internally, or between Arcadis and the city, we'd feel more comfortable in terms of thinking in terms of these numbers rather than what the contractor would think of, which would be we'd probably remove the contingency and then tighten up those AACE class modifiers. And
Yeah. Yeah, so we were currently using like 1.9 in the ad. But we think that you really need to plan for this total number. And worst comes to worst, you just don't spend it.
We have other questions. Do we have John on the line on here, don't we? Yeah, John's on, okay. John, is there anything else? John DeLine, you're on, right? I think we have him here.
I thought I saw his name.
I see his name, but I guess he's on mute. John DeLine, can you hear me? I'm just looking if there are any.
Yeah, he is on mute.
He is.
This is Jeff speaking. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jeff. We're not getting John.
All right. John, if you can hear me, it's *6 on your phone to unmute.
There we
Oh,
go.
there he goes.
All
Hi,
right.
John.
I thought Rick had to unmute me, so.
No.
All right.
John, I'm just looking for any input or feedback that you want to give to us here.
Yeah, no, this is a critical, probably the most critical project that we have to complete. The systems in the plants and the facilities are just a mishmash of all kinds of different equipment, and it's all outdated. And right now, the gentleman who takes care of our SCADA system and all that equipment is buying spare parts off of eBay because we can't buy them, at a regular supplier. So we really need to get this done, and it's not an easy project. You saw those wires; all those things have to be kept, except for Falula. We can shut down Falula while it's being done, but at regional, all those wires have to be swapped over. Everything has to be programmed. It's a difficult project, and it just, it adds to the expense. If we could do like we do at Falula and just shut down the regional plant, that'd be, the best thing, but we can't do that because that supplies all the city with water. The Falula plant can't do that. But like I said, this is probably the most important project because sooner or later this system just going to fail. There's Windows XP computers, all old equipment. It's just completely outdated. And some of the parts are unavailable. So as Alex pointed out, in one of those pictures that showed some additional equipment in the bottom, just thrown in the bottom of the control panel. We actually had to basically, for simplistic term, just splice that in. Our SCADA maintenance contractor did that just to kind of keep everything operating. So on an emergency repair, and that was like 30, 40 grand just to do that. So, but like I said, it's something that absolutely needs to be done. And we're hoping that the bids come in lower. We're going to plan on it, and I'm going to talk about a loan in a minute, but, we're planning on the 3.2, but of course, if it comes in lower, we won't spend that, and we won't borrow that. So hopefully we get some competitive bids and get a good contractor. So any additional questions from anyone?
John, just correct me if I'm wrong. This has been something that we've had in our rate study in our long-term plans as well, correct?
Yes.
This is nothing new. Yes.
Yeah, it's just taken a while to get to this point. We're pretty much close to 100% design. So, and Arcadis has done a great job with making sure that everything's going to be correct and everything's going to be consistent across the board. But yes, it was planned on some time ago and included in, the rate study and what we had for capital improvements, so.
So this is an update, we're not looking for a motion on this based on this presentation, is that correct?
No. The next item I will, though, the loan portion, because I'm going to talk about the fluid transmission main a little bit too. So, but before I go on to that, I'll just, like I said, if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or anything for Jen or Alex.
Does anybody have further questions? Okay. Well, Jen and Alex, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll turn it back over to John.
Okay, so the next item is a loan for $4 million for the skate upgrades and the fluid transmission main. The fluid transmission main is basically replacing the pipe that goes from the fluid plant down to the tanks. It simply is undersized, and it probably should have been done when the plants were constructed, but they thought enough water could be basically pushed through it. But what we found is that we can't operate this plant till full capacity. Not that we need it right now, because flows are down, but what happens is that when there's high demand in the system and then we try to produce more water, it backs up into the plant here and then flows out to waste in the environment. So when that happens, we have chlorine in that water as a disinfectant. We actually go into violation with our discharge here because we're not allowed to discharge that to the environment. Plus, it's a waste of water, and there's a multitude of reasons why you don't want to do that. So DEP has basically told us that we have to upgrade it, but it's to our benefit as well, because part of the turbine project that's going in up Narrows Road, we put a pump in at the Marshall PRV station at the end of Caldwell Street. So now we can pump from the low system, which is what the Falula plant supplies, to the high system, and actually supplement flows or replace some of the flows from the regional plant if something were to happen at the regional plant. It couldn't replace it completely because all the piping between the tanks and that station aren't, upsized, but it would help us get through some issues if something, were to happen with the pipeline from regional down to the city, or something happened with the plant where the capacity was reduced. So by replacing the fluid transmission main, we get away from having the issues with it backing up into the plant, but it also gives us more capacity to get water over into the high system. So in addition to, meeting what DEP is requiring in our administrative consent order, we also have that benefit too, and, helps with resiliency of our water system under, various scenarios. And a good example, just the other day, we had, for when we had snow there, we had an oil truck go off in the woods near our Mare Meadow Reservoir. Well, fortunately, there wasn't a spill, but, if something were to happen over there, we might have to shut down that plant for a while just to make sure that, that's contained, and being able to put water from the low system to the high system, would help us do that. So I sent out later this afternoon a cost estimate for the Falula transmission main. Comes out to about $1.3 million. So, it's a fairly complex project. It's not lengthy. It's only about 1,800 feet, but the problem is we have to go down through a dam alongside the brook that's down here and then back up under the brook back up to the tank. So even though the distance isn't very long, it's fairly complex. We're going to upgrade it from 18-inch main up to a 24-inch main, which will more than be adequate for the flows here, and we'll never have to worry about it again, of course. So basically, that project, that 1.3 plus the SCADA project of 3.2 comes out to about 4.5 million. I had put 4 million, but I hadn't gotten the final estimate from Weston and Sampson today for the transmission main, so it actually needs to be a bit higher. So what I'd like to do, and I've spoken to Calvin and Ann about this, the city auditor and the treasurer, is I'd like to, be able to borrow up to 4.5 million for these projects, which, like I said, was figured into rate study, and we also have our loan payments for the plants going away after this year, so we do have some, plenty of borrowing capacity. So So that's what I was looking for, approval to do that. Of course, I have to go through city council, we'll go through finance committee for this, but I just wanted to get the commission's vote, to go ahead to start that process so we can get the funding in place for when we do go out to bid for the SCADA project, and then, late spring for the transmission main project. One thing is the way the loan's set up, we probably won't have to spend a lot in this fiscal year, so the actual loan payments won't kick in next fall. They'll actually kick in the following fall, a year after each of the projects are done, so that'll help us out a bit too. So it'll push it off a little bit. So if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer those.
Do we have questions? And just to be clear, what you're looking for is a motion to, we make a motion to request the city council to authorize borrowing up to 4.5 million. Is that the motion that we're looking for?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that before or maybe if someone wants to make the motion, we can have discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I think this is, do you want me to make the motion?
Yeah, if you'd like, let's get a motion on the table so we can have discussion on the motion. That's the best way to do it.
All right, make a motion to request city council approve a $4.5 million loan order for the SCADA upgrades in the Falula transmission main.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Okay.
George, get a second? Okay, now do we have discussion on the motion? Any questions for John or any discussion on this motion?
Yeah, as John said, these are critical improvements to the water treatment system. Without the SCADA, the plants are we face the possibility of the plants going down, and the transmission main. I know that John has the operators have quite a bit of trouble, getting the water through that main to the tanks. So, I think these are necessary improvements.
John, my usual question again is, we've done the rate study, we've got the we've got a period of rate increases. Does this have any impact on the rate that we're currently paying, or any rates that are we going to have to request an increase in the future for this?
We do need to do a rate study fairly soon. Our revenues, which I'll talk about in a minute, haven't gone up a lot, and we've had some kind of with the COVID, it's kind of impacted us a bit. Not as much as I had feared, but it's doing all right. But right now with this, it'll be fine. We won't have to increase the rates, but it's something we need to look at to fund future capital projects. So,
okay. So this fits in with our current rate structure.
Right. Right. Yeah, it does. We actually have a bit more than that, so we're not pushing the envelope on it. But we do need to look at it for, future projects. Our last rate increase was a couple of years ago, and they really should be looked at, every 5 years at least, whether they go up or not. But, don't wait 10 years to see, where you are and where you're going. So, we will be doing that, over the winter months, getting that rate study done, and of course we'll present that to the commission. But presently, like I said, we have the capacity with that loan payment going away. We're not even, like I said, going to be close to what our capacity is to pay this back. So.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, take a vote.
John,
Oh,
I was going to ask John a question. Sorry, this is Jeff speaking.
Hi, Jeff.
John, do you know if something like this would go through the Capital Improvements Commission? I don't think they usually concern themselves with horizontal assets, but with the SCADA project, I don't know if it would.
Yeah,
like
I can check on that. They usually haven't, but have you been in with your projects at all, or?
It's been so long since SSU. I think SSU went before them. Of course, that would have, when we would have been going through that process, it would have been 3 or 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've done one of my CSS projects.
Yeah,
street jobs.
We should both of us should inquire about that. I had been before with them with a capital improvement plan, the SCADA project was in that. I don't think the transmission main was, because that kind of came up, in the last couple of years with Mass DEP. But yeah, it's something we should revisit.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll vote on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. What else you got, John?
Okay, the next one is our water rate and revenues, and I did send out an update this afternoon, what our commitment is on a monthly basis. That isn't all the water division's revenues, but these are the ones that are the revenues that are based solely on the water rates, the actual water that people use. We have other revenue from services and turn on, shut offs, and backflow testing and things like that. They help to cover the costs associated with each of those. Probably when you start, I didn't do a lot of analysis of it, but probably the thing that's most important is that if you look at on that sheet that I sent out, the lower right-hand side, you can see that the total revenues, as far as our monthly commitment, what we build out for FY 19, 20, and 21, you can see it's been around 2.1 million. I was happy to see that, for fiscal year 21, which we were in from July to October, we're actually at 2.16, which is a little bit more than last year. So I think we've had some impact from COVID, particularly in the spring months. There was some reduction in revenues, but we seem to have recovered a bit. I think part of the reason, there's still gray wolf, and some businesses aren't using as much water as they did before, prior to the pandemic. But I think that the dry summer that we had, as well as the new meters that we're installing, have helped us there. So if we see some recovery in the economy, Gray Wolf is our largest water user. It'd be nice to see them, operating at full capacity. So that would help a bit too. But I think that we're kind of holding our own, and I was happy to see those results. Once Missy did the monthly commitment for October, which was we didn't see a drop. It was consistent pretty much with last year, a little bit lower, but. So if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer. But it's not dire. We're holding our own, and hopefully with it, once we get all these new meters installed, and things at some point return to normal, maybe by next summer, that that should help us a bit.
Okay, and you're going to let us know how's the meter upgrade coming?
Yep, we have about over 11,400 something meters. We now have, as of Friday, I don't have a tally for this week. As of Friday, we had 7,041 meters replaced, leaving about 4,417 meters that still need to be replaced. We had a big gap there where we weren't going to people's houses or doing any of this, besides for, maybe a house closing or, a new house or a house being rehabbed. Those couple months were that, so we certainly fell behind with that. But right now we're doing about 200 to 240 per week between the contractor and us. Our personnel generally do 15 to 30 a week, and Bay State does around 200 a week. So we're moving along there. So I think by next week we'll be under 4,000 that need to be replaced. So, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll be closer to 2,500. I know that the last 500 to 1,000 are going to be difficult because a lot of people with old service lines or non-respondents, we're going to be pushing those. But Jen and Missy are doing a great job reaching out. The contractor sends out letters, but they're looking at the ones that haven't responded and able to make some calls with the information they have on the accounts, and they're reaching out every day, working very hard at it. I really got to give them credit because they're going through areas. For example, some of the condo projects. If there's 2 or 3 meters there that'll have to be done, they've been tracking down the owners and getting those lined up, and they're able to schedule the appointments on the Bay State, the contractor's website. So without having to call them or get the customer on the phone and schedule it. Simple as that. So yeah, it's moving along, and the new system with how we're reading the meters and everything is just working great. And we're still nursing the old system through this, and the more neighborhoods that we get to finished up as far as the meters, the less that we have to, drive around, say out to Constitution, one of the condo projects, to read a couple meters. We'd like to kind of narrow it down to areas where we have to do the drive-by with the old system, so that, eliminates, some of the labor requirements in the future. So as we tie it down the last, last ones that aren't able to be done. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the meter project. So, like I said, it's working. It is working great, the new system. It's just so easy to read all the meters and be able to help people. And we're going to have an announcement next week on the Water Smart software that'll go out to, it'll be in the billing account, but we'll send it out all city too. But all the customers next month will get a notice in their bill, how they can log into that and, get notified of a leak or something like that. So I'm sure that's going to raise some more phone calls for Jen and Missy, but I think it'll help people because then they'll become more aware of a leak earlier and, a toilet running or something like that, so that they don't, have to face a high bill. So I'm happy that, this meter system will not only benefit us, but it'll benefit a customer so that, they don't have a leak going by. So it's amazing how many houses, have a odd bathroom someplace that, doesn't get used or something, and something happened when the toilet, it just starts running, and this will help them to, make sure that doesn't happen. So if they sign up for it. Any questions on any of that?
Looks like you're good.
All right. So the last one I have is land project updates. We finalized the last land project protection project that we were working on, which was a donation of 60 acres over in Hubbardston. The property owner donated to the city because they got a tax credit through the state land preservation tax credit program. So we did survey it and spend some money, probably about $30,000 or between 20 and 30,000, definitely not over 30, between the land survey and all the due diligence. This is a landlocked parcel. They had actually asked us if they could have access to our property, sell their property so they could develop it, but it's our land's Article 97 land, so even if we want to, it would have to have approval through the state, which wouldn't be happening for watershed land. So, but anyway, so it was nice enough that they realized that, our hands were tied as far as that concerned, so they said, well, we'll donate to you then and get that tax credit. So, and that's pretty much all we have. Everything else is closed out that we've been working on. The Crocker, we received all the reimbursements from the states. Everything worked out exactly as planned with all those grants for the Crocker Jewel Hill Farm property. So, like I said, this is one of the first times I've been here that everything, we haven't been working on something, which is sad in some respects, but it gives me a break to concentrate on some of these other projects where we're working on and not having that as a ongoing distraction with a couple of those, being worked on. So unless there's any other questions, that's all I have for this evening.
Good. Thank you, John. Any other questions? Looks like you're good.
Thank you.
Oh, Jeff, we got to unmute you. You still there, Jeff? Jeff, you're on mute right now. Jeff?
Hello.
There we go. Okay.
There we
Jeff,
go.
you're up.
Technical difficulties. My apologies.
No
Jeff,
problem.
Jeff, you pulled a John.
To start off, I wanted to give an update on the ordinance, sewer ordinance, City Code Chapter 147. That's gone quite well since we last got together. It was submitted to council initially. Council, of course, referred it to both the Legislative Affairs Committee, and simultaneously they also referred to Water and Wastewater Commission, and that's why I reached out to Rick to see if we could do a letter of endorsement supporting the petition for the ordinance change. So the hearing with the Legislative Affairs Committee, that all went well. They supported it with a unanimous vote. It went back to council, and council heard it and read it and voted again in support of it. At that stage, council directed it to the city solicitor for the actual writing of the ordinance language. And I think I did most of the heavy lifting on the writing for Vinny, so Vinny turned it around fairly quickly. And then it was put forward to the city clerk, and the solicitor ordered that it be written into ordinance. So unfortunately, we're going to miss the first city council meeting in November, but we're hoping to be on the agenda of the second city council meeting in November. Now, I have a question out to the city clerk just to fully understand how the process works. I think that once the ordinance is published, there'll be another council vote which would actually finalize things. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I've got an outreach out to the city clerk to help clarify that point. But the bottom line is I think we're very close to getting this taken care of. And this is, of course, taking care of a lot of industrial pretreatment language that we needed to update the ordinance for, as well as the local limits. Since I've got the rules and regs currently before the commission, these were updated and submitted back in September as an update of what Arcadis had previously produced for the city. And since I recently got the city solicitor's attention, I provided him with the PDF of the rules and regs. And I haven't gotten feedback from the city solicitor yet. So if we don't finalize this tonight, I think that will be just fine. My hope would be that we can finalize the rules and regs and have the Water and Wastewater Commission vote to accept the rules and regs at the December Water and Wastewater Commission meeting. With that said, if the commission members did have any questions on that, I'd be happy to take that down. If I can address them tonight, I'll address them tonight. If I can't, I'll get back to the commission at the December meeting.
Okay, we've had these for a while. Has anybody have any questions on them as they stand at this point? Jeff, you'll get these if once you get it back from the city solicitor, if you can get it to us before the next meeting so that we have a chance to review it before the meeting. There's quite a bit in them.
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be
how much in advance would you like to have it, Rick? As soon as possible, I assume, right?
As soon as possible, but we'll read it the night before.
Okay, you got it. I'll be a fly in the ointment of the city solicitor until I get it back from him. That was one of the main items for wastewater. The rest of what I had was pretty much updates. Since we last got together, we've been moving forward with the next sewer separation job. We had that project put out to bid in August, and we ended up awarding the construction contract to J.A. Polito, a contractor out of Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. They're a good outfit. They've got a good reputation. The prices were quite competitive, so we were pretty happy with that. We've also held the pre-construction conference with the contractor. That was back in early October, the 9th. Right now, the contractor is submitting shop drawings and getting prepared to start the work. And it's later in the month of November when the contractor is actually going to work, or start the work, I should say. There's a number of things that the contractor could be doing, which is not excavation type work. And perhaps Nick Bosnetto can comment on this. There's been conditional approval provided to the contractor that they can do excavation work, provided that they maintain safe trenches, no plates, and so forth.
Yes,
so if we have go ahead, Nick.
Engineering perspective, we'll gladly work with the contractor to make sure that they're able to work through the winter if they have to in order to expedite this project.
The project has 700 total consecutive calendar days, and what that lands us on is September 19th as the final construction day. to complete the work, complete the work, and be ready for final payment. The construction contractor is fairly confident that we'll be able to accomplish that fairly comfortably, time-wise. Just to update on some other projects, we had the urgent project over on Elm Street. This was an egg-shaped brick sewer, and it was a trunk sewer, and it served quite a bit of homes and businesses to the north of Elm Street. The project went off very well. We ended up replacing the egg shape with a round PVC pipe. The contractors completed the pavement, and this actually was addressing an emergency, just to refresh the memories of the commission members. This is still within one of our combined sewer areas, so we're going to do sewer separation in this area. This was about a 300-foot stretch where we had extreme risk of failure, and the consequence of that failure, if it did fail, would have been tremendous. So I was happy that we were able to accomplish this project. The contractor, Blue Diamond Equipment, did a good job. Blue Diamond also completed the Riverbank Stabilization project. That was down by the east plant, of course. We had Riverbank erosion that had caused us to have a water main blowout that serviced the east plant. So effectively, we riprap armored stretches of the riverbank to help prevent those areas from further eroding. So that project has also been completed successfully. Presently, Blue Diamond is moved on to Highview Street, where we had a small sewer replacement and rehabilitation project that's commenced, and Blue Diamond is working up there right now. Just touching base on a few of the other updates. These are mostly Weston and Sampson project updates. The Sscs Phase 4 Interceptor sewer evaluation. This is something where we provided our review comments to Weston and Sampson, and they were addressing the city's comments so that we can submit them to both EPA and Mass DEP. The siphon cleaning design and bid and inspection services. This project is also completed. I forget off the top of my head exactly how many tons of debris has been removed from the sewers and siphons, but it was a considerable amount. Hopefully, as we continue the separation process, there'll be less and less grit-type materials getting into the sewers. And sewer siphons are one of those areas of the system that are just inherently vulnerable because they're a belly in the pipe that's intended to get beneath an obstruction, whether it's the river or something else. So if the velocity slows down in that type of system, grit that's being transported by high velocity flow can settle down into that, and that can create an obstruction and potentially a blockage. So this project has been completed and again, successfully. It's also completed under budget. The next item on the agenda is the wastewater management plan. Right now, Weston and Sampson is also working on that for us. Just to refresh the memory of the commission, the wastewater management plan is a consent decree remedial measure item, and technically it's like the zenith of the consent decree. It looks at everything that we've done and what else we have to do to come into compliance. And that will actually let us out of the consent decree. The consent decree isn't one of those things where you do X, Y, and Z and walk away from it. We actually need to be in compliance, and the wastewater management plan is essentially road mapping for us how that happens. So the consent decree requirement has 3 submissions. We had already submitted the first submission towards, at the end of this calendar year, December 31st, 2020, we'll be submitting our second submission. And I believe the third submission will be due at the end of 2023. But right now, everything is on schedule on that as well. That was pretty much what I had for updates. Does anyone have any questions?
Question for Jeff? Looks like you're good, Jeff.
All right, so if there are any questions on the rules and regs, please shoot those over, and I'll endeavor to provide the updated document to the commission as far in advance as possible of the December meeting.
Great. Any other business? What happened this morning, John, when all the water from the top of the hill went down?
Oh, we had a water main break on Myrtle,
Oh,
12-inch main.
oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, the pipe had a 9-foot crack in it.
Right. Okay.
Did you lose it for long?
I didn't. I'm downhill from my son. My son had to come down my house and shower. I think
Oh, really?
I think I was sucking all the water out of his house. So
Yeah.
He called today.
yeah, I told him to. I was at his house when the all I was getting was air.
Yeah, when it pulls it off the hills like that, even when they get it shut down, it takes a while to get back up there because it has to displace the air, and the only way all the air can be displaced is by everybody, turn on faucets. But of course, when they don't have water come out, they shut it back off.
Right.
But yeah, until it all the air gets back out and allows the water to redisplace it, takes a while. So.
We got calls today. They were worried about, constituents were worried about the water and mud that was splashed on the mural beside the old Tedeschi's or Store 24. They called us about that, wanted to make sure that we were going to clean that up because it made the mural a mess. We were like, we're worried about getting people back their water, but okay, we'll have somebody check that out.
Right on.
Jen, you can go down tomorrow and clean it, okay?
Oh yeah, I'll run right down there with a bucket and sponge.
Okay, any other business?
So next meeting is December 9th. Same thing, I assume Zoom.
I'm guessing, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. No other business. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good